What do you wish that brokers who are in the space now would understand? You've been in this business for a very long time, for decades.
Yeah.
What is it, the big difference between what you understand about self-funding and level funding that new brokers in the space just don't quite get?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. For me, it's understanding that all level funded plans are self-funded and that not all level funded plans are created equal.
Okay.
And and if I could add a third tenet there, and that is that level funding is a marketing term
Yeah. Okay.
because everybody's definition of level funding is different.
If you had to describe level funding in terms of these are the minimum parameters that it has, what would you say it has to have?
Predictable monthly cost,
Okay. Predictable monthly cost. And that's it.
no cash calls.
Okay. All right. I see what you did there. Predictable monthly cost, no cash calls. Anything else?
And if we're going to get into the weeds,
No, I mean, I'm looking at basics. So
yeah,
there's a lot of people on these conversations that are new to level funding. And
set it and forget it.
okay, you want it to be as simple and easy as possible. And from this standpoint, it's I pay my premium, I pay my total cost, and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got one that you like. I mean, yeah, that's probably the three.
Those two things.
Well, yeah, the predictable monthly cost, the kind of set it and forget it model, no cash calls. The stuff that ATA that the Amerishare product has, right? The immediate spec and advance. It's not just monthly accommodation. I think a lot of brokers get tripped up because they hear monthly accommodation and go, well, that's level funding, isn't it? And you and I both know that there are some stop loss contracts that have provisions in the 12th month. You can't do accommodation in the 12th month, or maybe there's a provision where you can't file an accommodation under $2,000. That kind of stuff, right?
Weird stuff that still sits out
It's
there.
weird stuff but then a broker thinks that it's level funded because it's got accommodation.
And I think that goes back to your point where you said not every level funded plan is created equal.
It's not.
What is it that you look at whenever you're looking at, and we're at ATA's world headquarters, but when you're looking at other people's level funded plans or just in general for the market, what are the 5 things or 3 things that you look at off the bat to say, do I want to work with these guys? Another carrier, another TPA?
Oh, it's got to be, number one has got to be if we're talking a bundled package like Amerishare is, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be an A-rated carrier.
Okay.
So we've got to have A-rated paper.
And there's a reason for that. And one of the things that I think a lot of brokers who are new to the space don't realize is that a lot of times their E&O, if it's not an A-rated paper, won't cover them.
There are some E&O policies that will not cover self-funded plans, period.
Yeah.
And level funded plans are self-funded.
Yeah.
So if we start with that core tenet that a level funded plan is a self-funded plan, then you've got to look at that. I will tell you the one thing that I did when I got started all those years ago was make sure that I have E&O that covers self-funded plans and more so covering the stop loss provision, right? The stop loss piece of it. But back to your question though. The 5 things that I look at when I'm vetting out a product. I want to see the paper, especially if it's a bundled package like Amerishare. I look at a sample administrative service agreement. I want to see
What's in the details there that really interests you?
how the accounts are set up.
Okay.
If it's not defined how TPA is setting up the claims accounts, if that's not detailed, then those are questions I think a broker needs to ask. And it's really clear in ATA's ASA how those things are set up in trust. And
With that, when you're reviewing kind of how the accounts are set up, how important do you think it is to young brokers? And I'm not trying to feed ATA here.
No.
I'm just having a conversation. The surplus mechanism and the trade-off, because it is a trade-off between 100% surplus at the end of plan runout and probably apples to apples, a lower rate, but a forfeiture of that surplus.
Yeah.
How do you evaluate that in your mind for your brokers?
Tom, I teach them how to spread it because the inevitable is going to happen. They're going to have to spread something to explain to their client what the difference is between this level funded opportunity and their fully insured opportunity. Or maybe they have a main BUCA level, carrier model level funded product where the fixed cost ratio from fixed cost to max cost is, I just looked at one today, it was 67% fixed cost.
So do the brokers...
And you contrast that to an ATA Amerishare quote, and it's 30 to 40% fixed costs and the rest of it. And then you're doing that down to 5 lives where, you look at these carrier models and you look at a 30 or 40 life case that has a level funded carrier model plan.
75-25,
75-25 or 70-30.
That just makes the self-funded component of it less and less valuable.
Well, and then you factor in So this is why I teach them to spread it. So then you factor in, you got to spread it differently. You have to tell the story about the fixed cost. The AmeriShare proposal spells that out very, very clearly. Here's what the fixed costs are. Here's what your aggregate liability is, down to the unit cost. And I know you know this, but I think a lot of brokers miss that. They're looking at the bottom line rate, and if you tell the rest of the story, the one that I looked at today, that 67-33 split, it looks like, oh, well, it's bad, but it's not as bad as 75-25 like on some others. But if the carrier model has a 50% refund of the surplus, and the refund really is not a refund, it's an admin credit
or store credit,
right? In-store credit, and it's not guaranteed. It's only if you renew. You renew, and now you're handcuffed to that policy. I think you owe it to the client to back out the corridor, 25%, whatever it is on the ag, back out the corridor, and then whatever that corridor is, half of that is fixed cost.
Yeah. It's more like co-insurance on that fund than it is self-funding, in my opinion.
Yeah. And then factor in 10% increase.
Yeah.
Because the only way you get that
is if you renew.
So you got to add that 10% increase in the fixed cost. And I think when brokers finally realize that and they spread that and they show this is what you're really buying.
On this, I had an interesting conversation last week and with another general agent that I respect, and he was saying that there's another piece of it that changes the incentives, because now if you're a carrier and you're having a bad year and your loss ratio's up, then you look at all of your good groups, and then if I have golden handcuffs on them, I now have a reason to give them a bigger renewal. Because what are they going to do? Leave me with all that money? Great. Right. I win either way. Right. I either get cash right now or I get a higher fee out of them later. So it perverses the incentives on renewal. And I think that actually that's the most insidious. It's not the forfeiture of 50%. It's the forfeiture unless you stay. And that right there changes the entire model of the renewal. And it takes it from the small business owner owning the farm and owning the excess grain from their fields, if they do well, putting it in their own granary, and turns it into them being a tenant on their own ground. And that is, I think, a massive philosophical shift.
Yeah.
That, I don't know, keeps me up at night, but there's a lot of people in the industry doing it.
We're talking farming now.
Yeah, well, both you and I are K-State boys, so there's some truth.